So for this review, I wanted to go over the individual features you get with Dehancer and how you can really implement them into your workflow if you really enjoy the film look, which I do. So the first test, I've got this scene that I shot in Latvia. For this I used the Mir 1B vintage lens, 37mm f2.8. Quite good center sharpness, but quite a lot of fall off, so if you really want to emulate a film look, you can really look into using vintage lenses. So in this particular scene, I want to emulate the shots from the Christopher Nolan film Dunkirk. The first sort of thing you'd need to do is convert it from log to Rec 709. There's two ways you can do that. The first, you could just add your LUT straight beforehand, set your gamma, and all of this was shot on the Lumix S5 in Vlog, and then you can just go ahead and add the plugin at the end. Or you can actually just go straight ahead with the plugin and set everything in this input tab at the top. So you can set your source, you can do choose camera, and then for my case, Panasonic, S5, and then Vlog, and then it will convert it as well for you. I find the colors do tend to be slightly different between the two. Not quite sure why that's the case, but I think doing it just straight within the plugin is not a bad idea. Then you can go to adding a film look. So Dehancer has a ton of features to do this. First of all, you can pick what film stock you want to use, and they've got actual motion picture stuff like Kodak Vision 3, and they've also got stills stocks like Kodak Color Plus or Ektar or Gold, which you can buy anywhere. What I really like is that they actually let you push and pull the film. I find that it makes a very, very marginal difference. I have a feeling like it should be stronger than what it's giving you. It also lets you do a film developer, so this will let you just change contrast, in which case I'd add quite a bit. Do small gamma changes and things like that. Film compression, that's mostly to do with your shadows and highlights. Film will preserve highlights very well, but it struggles with shadows. So this will compress your highlights down quite a bit. Film print, again, another great feature, so you can change your profile from linear to picking one of the 4 options they have. Film grain, I think that's one of the main reasons somebody would get a plugin like this. It does give you several options, so it gives you 3 options per format. So you have 65, 35, 60, and 8mm, and each one will have ISO 50, 250, and 500. They all seem very accurate and very customizable, so for this I'd pick 65mm ISO 650, which will give you very minor tight grain, but if you want more, you can add more. And I just love the amount of customizability this has. Halation, again, something I love. On top of being able to select the different film formats again, because smaller formats tend to have more halation, it actually lets you pick. It gives you a no remjet option. Remjet is an anti-halation layer that's added to film. Stocks like Cinestill actually have this layer removed and tend to show quite a lot more halation. This is with remjet, that's without. Another feature I love is being able to use mask mode to see where the halation is being applied and then make your tweaks that way. In cases where you might not be able to see it very clearly, this is very helpful to see what it's affecting, very useful tool. Bloom, a way of just adding a little bit more of that haze around highlight areas. Just adds a bit more of that glow that you would find with various film stocks. Go very quickly from log to beautiful color graded footage like this. Looking at another scene here we can perhaps try to go for a slightly different look. If I then decide instead to pick a still stock like Portra 400, it would give you a different aesthetic. I find a lot of these films straight when you bake them in are very washed out, which with real film is not the case. I find a lot of my pictures come with quite decent contrast. So for this we select Kodak Gold, give it some more contrast. In this case we can instead go for maybe a 16mm aesthetic, so giving it slightly more aggressive halation and grain, more bloom. Then we can look at adding also film breath and gate weave. These are mostly just effects that make your frame shift very slightly as film would physically move through the film gate, which you don't get with digital, where it's just perfectly still. So you can see the sort of jittering and the sort of color differences. I find that the color shifts are slightly unnerving. It tends to go from green to neutral to magenta in between frames. I don't know whether that's a feature I'd ever really use. Gate weave, however, is much nicer. I think that's something that most people would use on a regular basis. And then 80mm would have more gate weave, being a smaller stock. 65mm have much less gate weave, being a much larger stock. Now, if we take this example here to look more at skin tones, I would love to pick some stock that's known for having much better skin tones. So something like Kodak Gold or even Portrait. So I took Portrait 160. I find that is not very accurate at all. Looking at the raw footage compared to with the stock, I mean, it just adds a ton of green, which, yeah, I'm not sure how to feel about that. So if you're working without the look, if you're removing the film and just using other features such as the compression, when you're making adjustments to exposure after having added the plugin, particularly with highlights, if you want to push highlights quite a lot, they tend to break quite violently as visible. It just goes black and all sorts of different shades, rather than just being overexposed, which I really don't appreciate. I think this is solvable by making sure you've got exposure down before you decide to use the plugin. Right, my other issue with Dehancer, it has to be the elephant in the room, it's the price. As fantastic of a plugin as it is, I do not think that the monthly price tag of almost $60 a month can justify it. It's fantastic, it gives you all your tools in one place. However, you can get maybe 80% or 90% of the way to the film look without having Dehancer. It's a lot of features are purely convenience. You can add halation and film grain and a LUT all separately. But sure, it might take you slightly longer to do so, but it will not cost you anything. If you're a working professional and you do this regularly, I think this is completely justified, and buying a yearly subscription makes sense. But other than that, this is for an individual, this can be a very pricey software. I mean, even compared to full programs, this is quite a stiff price. I also wanted to mention the overscan. This is supposed to look like the sprockets on the side of what would be a film roll. However, I find that for professional work, it's a little bit gimmicky. I mean, you can... it is quite customizable. You've got different aspect ratios. You have all sorts of different styles. You can customize it quite a lot. And it's very well made. However, I think for the intended target audience of working professionals who are willing to pay the price for this software, I think this feature will go largely unused. all in all, if you're a working professional and you want to streamline a film emulation look for all your footage, Dehancer is the best thing out there. There's not many plugins on the market that even come close. But if you're a solo creator, you really have to be able to justify that price. If there was a more basic version of, opposed to Dehancer Pro, perhaps just having halation, grain, and bloom, and maybe less film profiles to choose from for a lower price, I think this would reach a lot more people. But just at the current price point, I myself would not be able to afford something like this.